Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to talk about creepy stories that I found on Reddit. Now recently, I don't know if you saw, but I made a video about a very creepy let's not meet again type experience at a job interview. I'll link that down below. But anyway, based on that and also another YouTuber called QStar who reads Reddit posts and is hilarious, I decided I would do the same with some creepy posts. Before I get into that, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, that is Shudder. Shudder is a premium video streaming service that is focused on horrors and thrillers, and you guys know that's my favorite genre of movies. To try Shudder for free for 30 days, go to shudder.com and use promo code ReadyToGlare. One of the cool things about Shudder is that it's ad-free. It's also affordable for $4.99 a month. One of my favorite things about Shudder is that it has one of my absolute favorite horror movies called Hell House LLC 2, The Abaddon Hotel. It's an awesome movie, especially if you like Halloween type horror movies that really just touch on some of my deepest fears. So I'm so glad that that movie's there. So if you're interested in a 30-day free trial on Shudder, go to shudder.com and use promo code ReadyToGlare. That being said, let's get into the creepiness. I chose two stories that are relatively long. I feel like they both have twists that I didn't really expect. So here we go. My significant other and I met the same creep before we ever met. So my significant other and I were talking once after reading stories to each other from this very subreddit and started telling one another about creeps we had known in the past. It became clear after a while that we had known the same creep mere months apart before we had ever met each other. So let me take you to that tale, the tale of Carl. So I would say about 8 years before my significant other and I had met, my ex and I were in the market for a roommate to take up the slack on the rent that the previous roommate left behind. We found it in an individual named Carl. Now, things seemed okay with Carl. He went to class and work on time, kept the place clean, and paid rent on time. We even hung out as a group whenever we could arrange it and watch things together. So we thought everything was cool. So cool, in fact, we saw no problem with leaving Carl alone in the apartment while my ex and I went on a trip with my ex's family. During the trip, Carl let us know he needed to move out because he had lost his job and was having trouble finding another one. This is important. We said that was fine and he just had to be out by the time we got back. And he said that was not a problem since this gave him almost 60 days to find a new place and we would just take the rent he couldn't pay out of the security deposit. So time goes by and we get back and we see a bunch of suitcases and no Carl. And my ex and I think, oh, he really cut this close, but whatever, these things happen. Then we see a random woman exit Carl's room, but think nothing of it because they must be here to help Carl move, right? Nope. This woman, Nancy, walks up to my ex and I and asks, "Who are you and what are you doing in Carl's apartment?" Then the story unfolds. So while we were gone, Carl decided they weren't super big on the idea of leaving and had moved Nancy in, telling them they owned the whole big studio apartment. These bags from earlier? They were her bags. She was moving into our room. Carl had told her that my ex and I had skipped out and he was left behind to take care of our stuff and throw it all away and this, that, and the other. Just an endless sea of lies. We had to show Nancy the lease and our texts to prove that Carl was subleasing from us before she would believe us. And then we offered her Carl's spot since we did have a vacancy, which they accepted since they had just moved out of their dorms and had nowhere to go now. Things are going okay, and we are all geared up to face Carl when he gets home from work when Nancy mentions something offhandedly. That Carl had been putting peanuts in the milk in the fridge this morning before he left. Now, my ex has a terrible peanut allergy and loves milk. If he had taken one sip, they would have probably died because we did not have any EpiPens, and Carl knew that. So, with attempted murder now revealed and single white female coming to mind, Carl strolls in, sees us, and says out loud, "Oh, fuck." Yeah, oh fuck is right. He was very surprised that Nancy was not on his side and that he really had to leave that second and that she had ratted him out about the milk, which he tried to get my ex to drink to prove it wasn't tainted. I repeat, Carl told my ex to drink the milk repeatedly to prove his innocence. Not dump the milk out and look for peanuts, drink the milk and when you don't die, it proves I didn't poison it. Yeah, that's a big no. So we made Carl pack that instant and leave because we were young and didn't think the police would take any of this seriously since they had a record of avoiding things that were not cut and dry or straight up murder. Now at this point you may be saying to yourself, work? But I thought Carl didn't have a job and that's why he had to leave. That's where my significant other, who I would not meet for years, mind you, came in. For you see, the place that Carl got a job at was my significant other's place of work. Carl was hired to stock the shelves and that was it. Just stock the shelves. Not clean or do inventory or anything else, just stock the shelves. Carl proceeded to follow customers around and harass them about what they were going to buy so he would know what to get more of from the back. He went so far as to pick through their carts to see what items they had while they were still shopping and follow them through aisles, mostly the women. Carl would also sit on the floor of the aisles with Nancy and just talk, blocking everyone and not moving unless someone told him to. And since this was a specialty shop with intermittent traffic, this could be quite a while, but it was also preferable to him harassing the customers, so management let it go. So, what finally got Carl fired, you may ask? Well, the owner of the store came in very early one day to do inventory and saw that lights were on in the basement of the building. They followed those lights to the stockroom and found Carl sleeping there on a pile of product. When they told him to leave, he asked when he could come back and they told him never, to which he seemed rather angry. He tried just showing up to work several times after that like nothing happened, and everyone had to keep kicking him out. From what I understand, he had a place to go. He just didn't want to pay rent there and thought if he slept in the stockroom, he wouldn't have to. No one, either myself or my significant other knows, has seen or heard from Carl since, and we are all fine with that. I wouldn't even be so concerned about Carl if the peanut thing didn't come up, because everything else to me says that there's some kind of mental health issue, and maybe there is, but the peanut thing is really what scares me, because the rest is all somewhat manageable or maybe understandable. I feel like making up the lie about the apartment is bad in itself, but it brings it to a whole new level of scary when someone is trying to poison you. And I genuinely cannot believe that his way of proving that he wasn't guilty was like, oh, just drink the peanut milk and see. If you die, then I guess I am guilty, but you won't be here to see it. This just makes me happy that I've never really had a roommate. Genuinely, this makes me so happy that I decided to live by myself. Alright, so this is another story. I'm not gonna read the title because it kind of gives away what's gonna happen. Buckle up for this one. This story all starts back when I was 6 or 7. I was always a quiet girl that liked spending a lot of time alone reading or playing. I had a lot of friends but never spent much time with them outside of school because my alone time was always very important to me. After moving to a new city closer to some relatives that I didn't see much growing up, my aunt decided that it would be a great idea if I spent my after school hours playing with her son, who is 7 years older than me. My cousin was an odd kid. He never got on well with other people and usually ended up being an outcast. He had no friends and spent much of his time indoors watching TV or playing video games. He was prone to fits of rage that usually ended with him breaking things or screaming a lot. He was also a lot bigger than most people his age and was huge compared to me. Around when we started hanging out, he was already 6'4" and very overweight. He also had what I've come to call dead eyes. When he looks at you, it's like he's looking through you. And any emotion he showed never reached his eyes, other than anger. My aunt thought it would be beneficial for the both of us if we started spending our free time together so he would have a friend and I wouldn't be spending so much time alone. My parents weren't as enthusiastic, but thought it couldn't cause any harm. Everyone in my family always felt bad for my cousin due to him always being alone and having parents that weren't fit to be parents. It was more like I was babysitting him more than anything, which looking back was a horrible situation to put a young girl in with a guy so much older and bigger. It started innocent enough. We shared some common interests, such as reading and video games, and he seemed to not be as violent with me, maybe because I was family, it's hard to say. It got to the point that we were talking or hanging out every day. People often mistook him for my older brother. When I got to be about 9 or 10, things started to change. By that time, he was 17, kicked out of school, and regularly intimidating people. He was socially awkward to the point that I was the only person whom he could have a conversation with, and he came to depend on my presence. I couldn't hang out with my friends or have free time, or he would call up screaming and cry that I was betraying him or abandoning him. Then the threats started. I remember being in his apartment with him one day while his parents were out, and he was showing me a new knife that he bought. For some reason, I was never afraid of him, even when he would have outbursts around me. It always seemed I could calm him down, and I couldn't imagine he would hurt me as I was his only friend. It was this day that he laid down that we were going to run away from my home when I was 16, and that I was going to be his wife and take care of him like a mother, basically, while he would spend his days playing video games. I sort of laughed it off, thinking it was a bizarre joke or some sort of game he was playing. This really made him angry. He flew off the handle, started screaming and waving the knife around with the blade out that we were meant for each other, and there was no way he would let me live if he couldn't have me. Being a naive fucking idiot, I didn't tell my parents, or his parents, and things got worse from there. I tried to put off hanging out with him. He would threaten to kill my parents, or my cats, or his parents. He would come to my apartment late at night, knock on the door, then run off, I guess to let me know he could. At the same time, he began doubling down on me being destined to be his lover. He would use his allowance to buy inappropriate clothing for me or flowers. He would write poems and fanfics about our life together. He would call me in the middle of the night and try to get me to talk about inappropriate things with him. He also became very controlling. It got to the point that just going to school for the day would set him off because it was less time he got to spend with me. I remember being about 14 and him killing his parrot in a fit of rage because I was late coming over to his apartment after school. It's cliche as hell, but he was screaming, "Look what you made me do," over and over, then crying and hugging the parrot. It was one of the most terrifying things I've seen. He had a new parrot the next day. I can't remember how, but I ended up telling my parents about everything he was doing and that I was afraid to be around him. They banned him from seeing me anymore and told his aunt he was scaring me and not to bring him to family get-togethers. I was honestly relieved and thought it was over, that I could start living some sort of life of my own without being tied to the hip to him. But then the threatening phone calls and the text messages and the social media messages started. He would try to either catfish me by pretending to be someone else, or he would straight up tell me I was going to die soon or my family was, and it was my fault for ruining his life. He sounded deranged, and the way he would scream his all caps messages, I had to stop going out for walks because he started showing up and watching me. I honestly thought he was going to kill me. Every day was constant fear until I was 16 or so and got my first boyfriend. When he heard that I was with someone, I got my last message from him saying I betrayed him in the worst way possible, and one day, it could be weeks from now or years from now, he would kill me. Everything died down after that. He never came to family gatherings. He became a NEET and lives off his parents playing video games all day. He found someone online that he started to stalk, which I guess took his focus off of me. My life went back to some sort of normal until I was 21. Then I received a phone call from him asking me to help get his life back together because according to him, the day I left was the day he lost all hope. I hung up on him. It's been years now. He's in his mid-30s, still a NEET. I still fear he will come for me one day. I see him once in a while walking around where I live. He still looks terrifying. There's honestly so much more to this story that I forgot over the years. It has become such a blur due to a lot of the stuff I was coping with around the same time. But I can say he made my life a nightmare for many years. Some of the more painful aspects of the story I can't even get into without throwing myself into a fit of anxiety. I hope to God I never have to be in the same room as him again, because if that happens, I don't think I'll come out the other side alive. I almost don't even know what to say to that. Like, that is so scary. The title of this is Obsessive Older Relative Terrorized Me for Years. Now, for some reason, when I read that title, I automatically thought of someone in a larger position of power, like an uncle or an aunt, or like, you know, someone significantly older, though this guy was 7 years, which is a big enough gap, but I really thought it was going to be someone in the position of power being, you know, mentally abusive. I did not expect someone that, you know, you might be friends with, like a cousin that's close enough to your age, to be mentally abusive like that, and honestly scary. I genuinely feel like this guy sounds like a serial killer. You know how they say that killers start with small animals and stuff like that? That's so scary. I think that's probably one of the things that scares me the most. Like, obviously the screaming is in itself concerning, but the fact that he just killed his parrot out of this fit of rage and had a new one the next day, that's really concerning. Like, that genuinely makes me very scared for this person. I hope that this girl stays safe, because that is honestly so scary. And the fact that he's even like visible around her neighborhood or around where she lives, that's gonna be a no from me. I would carry a knife around with me if I were her. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like this style of video or if you want me to look at a specific subreddit. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.